The American Pie franchise was a cultural phenomenon of the early 2000s. The stories told are ones about relationships, family, and generally coming to terms with growing up, including all the embarrassing and best moments that most go through, and what different types of people amount to. The success of these movies can be boiled down to the tone, absurdity, and inappropriate humor, but combined with touching moments, and at its core, it's heartfelt. And I'd argue that that's what makes these movies stand out from the rest of the movies in this genre. Let's go ahead now and rank the 9 movies in the franchise. This is how I feel about the movies, and I'm sure you'll disagree on some of these, but there are just a couple that aren't appreciated enough, at least. I also have included a little graphic that shows the popular audience ranking averaged out from IMDb, Letterboxd, and Rotten Tomatoes, so you can follow along with that. But at number 9, the worst and most recent addition has to be Girls' Rules, and it seems that there's no debate on this one.
Please raise your glasses.
The girls' rules.
Yes! Here. Oh. We have a pact!
The idea of an American Pie movie with female leads is actually brilliant. However, the execution is brutally bad. Considering this movie was made not too long ago, it also kind of makes sense. You hear it all the time, oh, but you wouldn't be able to make that movie today, and this movie fully committed to that idea. It could have been a really interesting exploration about the female view, but instead it tiptoes around the subject and essentially nothing happens. The movie does briefly explore how social media comes into play in today's youth, but they don't push that idea far enough. Another side point, it really feels like this movie would have benefited from having a female director. But anyway, the characters are lame, all the life has been drained, there are no memorable lines or quotes, enough time spent here, it's a shame it wasn't better, and in all, it felt like an episode or two of a bad coming-of-age Netflix show. Number 8, Naked Mile.
Welcome to the Naked Mile!
The idea for this movie, again, wasn't an inherently bad one. What would it look like if a stifler was a bit of a loser? But again, the execution just falls flat. The movie does go deeper than ever into the inner workings of the Stifler family, and I like the idea of seeing a father figure Stifler, as there were lots of interesting opportunities there, and the popular, well-liked Dwight Stifler was probably one of the highlights of the movie. Unfortunately, the writing of the movie instead just shoots those ideas into the ground, and it just becomes a copy-paste concept of this high school kids go to college for a weekend. The movie also feels like it's built around showing as many topless college goers as possible, while in contrast, the original American Pie concept was grounded in reality and relatable moments and happenings. Personally, I have a hard time liking the main character, or really most of the characters, and that might come from this movie substituting plot with party scenes, and they're still not as memorable or funny as some of the other entries on this list. This movie's most memorable scene is right at the start, and I would mention what happens, but I think I would get demonetized. Poor grandma. Number 7, Beta House, and just for context, this is like part 2 of Naked Mile.
The Greek Olympiad is crazy. There is a degree of perversion in these games which I don't think would serve you kids well.
Now, between number 6 and 7, I do actually think that this is the more entertaining addition to the franchise, but I still don't like the cast or the stories around these two movies, which play as like part 1 and 2, as I mentioned. However, this movie does have more of an identity, and it commits fully to just being completely outrageous. Now, our former high school kids are now in college, back, and joining the sorority run by the popular Dwight Stifler, and it all plays a little more naturally, again, copy and paste from previous concepts, but it's a lot more fun than Naked Mile. This rehash of Revenge of the Nerds was a fun concept. Not much more to say here, but while I don't think I'd ever put on Girls' Rules or Naked Mile, there might be a time and place for this one. Maybe. Number 6, The Book of Love.
If you're honest and treat a girl with respect, then whatever happens is meant to happen because it's all perfectly natural.
This is the last movie in the franchise that I would market as bad. There is a big gap between here and the top 5 in my opinion. In this movie, we go back to having a Stifler play a similar role to what he played in the original American Pie, which is honestly a breath of fresh air to allow us to have some new leads. However, he is probably tied for worst Stifler of the entire franchise. Scott Stifler has no charm, bad jokes, probably miscast, and is just truly annoying most of the time. Also, I really don't mind our lead trio in this movie. They're back to being relatable and come off as more genuine. All the movies so far on this list were void of interesting female characters in my opinion. This movie I feel makes a slightly better effort at that as well. This movie in many ways was a back to basics for the franchise, both in format and in the ideas. I personally enjoyed the scene change to a winter lodge, similarly how in American Pie 2 they go to a summer house. Overall, this movie is fairly inoffensive and definitely feels like 2009. Smack average. Now we're into the top 5, and it's really difficult because I like all these movies. I feel each of these movies brings something different to the table. But at number 5, American Reunion.
I get it. You guys think I'm a dick.
What? Okay. Well, maybe you are kind of a dick, but you're a fun dick. You're our dick.
I feel the 4 movies with the original cast show how life moves on, and how everyone tackles it a little differently. With every movie we get a little farther in that cycle. With Reunion we are now dealing with marriage issues, parents getting older, kids, dealing with the younger generations, being alone, and dealing with the consequences of your past actions. With this film, we also get a full reunion. All of our favorite characters are back, as some of them were not in the 3rd installment. This movie does a fantastic job of bridging the gap, giving the characters a story, and carrying on that heartfelt feeling that was in the original 3 movies, as well as delivering important life lessons like it's never too late and everybody is always learning throughout life. I love the storyline with Jim's dad and him getting back in the game, or Stifler coming to terms with his past and getting his happy ending. Why isn't this movie even higher on the list? Well, the others are just even better. This was the perfect fan service, but it's difficult to compete with that young energy of the originals. We are talking about grown-ups now after all. Also, this cast is just excellent at giving us those memorable moments, like when Stifler craps in the coolers of the teens. It's just gold. Number 4, American Pie 2. While American Reunion definitely has some things over this installment, American Pie 2 has a banging soundtrack and it's absolutely full of laughs. This movie delivers the hard-hitting truth that your high school friends and lovers are inevitably going to have to get on with their lives, and so will you. We deal with long-distance relationships and awkward opportunities and the feeling of the last hurrah here. And we move away from sex being the main goal, now finding the right person to be with and yada yada yada. Some of the storylines are a little awkward. Finch's role in this movie is fairly offbeat, for example, and Kevin is usually a little uninteresting but necessary, same here. Despite this, this movie is filled with, in my opinion, some of the funniest scenes in the entire franchise. The scene where Jim mistakes the glue for lube, and the scene where Jim is at band camp as Petey, oh my god, it's just too good. I put this one on if I want to laugh and feel some summer vibes. The next 3 are especially hard to rank. Any of them could be number 1, honestly, on any given day. But number 3, American Wedding.
Hey, Finch, you want this for here or to go?
A witty saying proves nothing, Voltaire.
Suck my dick, Ron Jeremy.
This is the American Pie movie that's grown on me the most, and if I were to choose one to watch right now, I'd choose this one. Entries 3 and 4 on this list are the funniest. I mean, American Wedding is super underrated when it comes to laughs. And seeing this side of Stifler fleshes out his character brilliantly, and the same goes for Finch. That is one of the best parts about this movie. Finch and Stifler competing for Cadence, Michelle's sister. They are trying to figure her out, and the antics that happen in order to win her heart are incredible. The whole movie is just one great scene after another. The scene where the Flahertys are invited over for dinner is one of the funniest sequences I've seen in my entire life. Seeing Stifler do the dance at the gay bar with the dad from Good Luck Charlie, it's a classic. And who can forget Stifler eating some dog poo? But also other heartfelt moments like Stifler teaching Jim to dance. Brilliant. Everything makes me want to put this above the next pick, but it doesn't feel quite right. What I will say is this has to be the best directed and produced movie. They are missing a good chunk of the original cast, but they elevated characters like Finch and Stifler to make up for it and handled the progression into adulthood perfectly. This movie sets the bar that American Reunion wasn't quite able to reach. Number 2, American Pie.
Mom? Shipwreck? Oh, hey, Stifler.
Undeniably the most iconic movie of the bunch, the original, the one with the most memorable moments, great soundtrack, a cultural pop hit. Following Jim and his buddies on their mission was a blast, and seeing all that they learned along the way, it's just good. The novelty of the concept, the willingness to go above and beyond in a modern way shaped this movie fantastically. As a result, it's super quotable, practically created the term MILF, and it's just an absolute classic. Whether it be Jim's dad's teachings, or Stifler's jokes, the Shermanator, or Finch's rumors, there is just so much fun, not to mention the pie. Seeing this movie take place in high school in the 90s is as nostalgic as it gets, not to mention the Blink-182 cameo, which to this day is probably still my favorite band. Another one of my favorite moments in American Pie is the very ending. That dance Mr. Levinstein does is just so classic. Don't need to justify a classic like this anymore, but I will need to justify the next one. Number 1, Bandcamp.
You know, the people Steve thought were his friends really didn't like him very much.
What?
But I think you're different. I think people want to like you, Matt. You just make it really hard.
Okay, so I know this is a really unpopular opinion, but I'm not necessarily saying it's the best of the bunch either. It's just my favorite. The lead here is Matt Stifler, Steve Stifler's younger brother, who is actually a character that appears in the first 2 movies, even if you might not notice him. His evolution through this movie, from being a copy of his brother to understanding how people felt about his brother to learning that his popularity at school shouldn't be at the expense of others, is such a trip.
Did everybody hate my brother?
It's the only spin-off that manages to capture the heart of the original cast, which makes sense as it's the spin-off which is most closely linked. The cast here is brilliant, with truly likable characters like Ernie, Elise, Chloe, etc. Like the original cast, they feel real and relatable. The movie also features a villain type, Brandon Van de Kamp, something that is unique to this movie in the series. Maybe perhaps other than Beta House, but it helps the plot along fantastically. I would say the movie is written in a really satisfying way where you get to see what you want to see at the end, but not in a predictable way at all. It makes a great rewatch as well. The setting is also great, with the bandies and the competition that's happening along the way, not to mention that this movie has its own original soundtrack. I feel I'm just listing the things I love about this movie now, so if you haven't seen it, give it a shot, and if you have seen it, watch it again. I can't see how it's seen as a 4.8 out of 10. Anyways, that's my list for American Pie movies ranked. Now, I want to know your list. Also, if I'm definitely wrong about something, let me know. It was a really close call on a lot of these. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys soon.